There are still protests going on in Iran over fuel price hikes and rationing. But with 95% of internet access shut down by the government, it's hard for the outside world to tell. These are scarce pictures from protests late yesterday, with security forces apparently firing on protesters from a rooftop. The protests began when the government announced the hikes. The country's economy is in serious trouble, and inflation is causing many people hardship. Jobs are hard to find, and the currency is shaky. One of the problems is the sanctions imposed by U.S. President Donald Trump after he pulled out of the Iran nuclear deal. So learning the latest on the situation in Iran is a challenge, but reporter Hadi Neely and his colleagues at BBC Persia are getting updates from people on the ground. He joins me now from London. So Hadi, some have called this Iran's largest internet shutdown in its history. It's been cut off across the country since Friday. So how difficult is it for protesters to get news out of the country?
It's quite challenging for them. First, to communicate with each other, to know where they need to show up for the next round of protests, next round of...
Well, so this is a story that isn't getting much news headlines, and I fucking kind of wonder why, to be perfectly honest with you. It would seem like this would be really good news for the United States, so I don't know why it's not getting more news coverage, legit. Maybe it's the fact, you know what I'm saying, that it's something that's kind of pro-Donald Trump, but it's kind of not at the same point. So let's have a conversation and find out what's really going on. All right, so here's the situation. Iran stood here and hiked up its gas prices. Back in the 1950s and 60s, they ended up standing here, I think actually 1979, they went from 50% nationalization of the oil to 100%. And what they do is they give out basically free oil at this point. And I wrote down some numbers so we understand where we're at. They went from paying 8.5 cents a gallon to 8.5 cents a liter to 13 cents a liter. All right. And, you know what I'm saying, they went from 250 liters per month to 60 liters per month. That's basically the equivalent of they went from 69 gallons to 17 gallons a month, which is a restriction on how much gas they can purchase. And 85 cents to 13 cents is kind of like going from, because it's times 3.85, right? So, because that's liters to gallons, so that would end up being about 49 cents a gallon. They used to pay about 26. So, with that being said, all right, that's what these individuals are actually complaining about, and that's what this whole thing really is. And their economy's kind of been in the shitter. Well, it's been super in the shitter. They're in basically a depression state at this point, and there's massive amounts of inflation all over the country. People are paying more for goods. They're getting restricted on their gas usage. So individuals got upset, decided to stand here when they were driving to work and doing whatever they needed to do, to just park their cars and walk the fuck away. So, with that being said, that's where we are today. Well, actually, that's where we were about Friday, Saturday, something like that. And I apologize, I haven't had a chance to make a video. I've been busy grinding and working and making this money. You know, I mean, it is what it is. So, Iran's interior minister has warned security officials will step up actions against protesters taking to the streets over the new gas policy. Protests have erupted across Iran after the government unexpectedly announced it was rationing gas and increasing its price. At least one person has been killed and others injured in the violence. Officials say that the changes, which have been seen prices rise by at least 50%, will free up money to help the poor. Iran is already suffering economically due to stiff sanctions imposed by the U.S. after Washington decided to pull out of the 2015 Iran nuclear deal. Right? How renewed U.S. sanctions have hit Iran hard. Iran's network influence in the Middle East growing. Protests erupted hours after new policies were announced on Friday, with fresh demonstrations on Saturday in some cities. There are also reports that access to the internet may have been restricted. Reuters reported citing a web monitoring group. Yeah, and all right, so there's a bunch of different pieces to this story. Legitimately, they shut off the internet so like nobody can actually hear what's going on, and nobody has any idea what's going on inside of the country. There has legitimately the first story that got posted about this was like 3 or 4 days ago, and then there was no coverage anywhere in the world for this for 24 hours. Which, let's be honest here. With a power like Iran that's 2,000-year-old in the Middle East and is involved in all these conflicts all over the area, you would think this would be a bigger story. Legit. So, you know what? Here on Pinoy News, we'll do the news's job for him and cover it, all right? Because I think it's fucking important to do so. Interior Minister Abdurreza Rahmani Fazli, speaking during an interview with state television on Saturday, warned that law enforcement and security officials will have no choice but to step up and restore calm if illegal actions continue. Mr. Rahmani Fazli criticized a limited number of people whom he accused of abusing the public mood to create intimidation and terror. All right. At least one person was killed during protests in the central city in Surgan on Friday. On Friday, officials claim state news agency IRNA said that there was clashes with police when protesters attacked the fuel storage warehouse on Friday and tried to set it to fire and set fire to it. Yeah. Fresh protests were held Saturday in the cities of Dorward, Garmsar, Gorgan, Lam, Karag, Kamarabad, Meshdisar, Kwazin, Qom, Sanajad, Sharad, and Saraz, IRNA reported. Footage posted on social media suggests many people have been killed. On Saturday, the semi-official ISNA news agency reported that security officials have threatened to legally pursue social media users who were sharing footage online. A statement accredited to the Security Emergency Center of Iran's Interior Minister accused some users of rumor-mongering and spreading lies about the protest. The report also claimed that footage was being recycled from incidents in previous years to undermine public confidence and disrupt national security. On both days, there were reports of angry motorists blocking some roads by turning off car engines or abandoning vehicles and troubling. Videos posted online reportedly showed motorists in the capital Tehran stopping traffic in the Imam Ali Highway and chanting for police to support them. Another clip shows what appeared to be a roadblock across Tehran-Karaj motorway hit by the season's first heavy snowfall. Other videos spreading online show clashes between security forces and protesters and banks burning in several cities. So apparently they're burning their banking system the fuck to the ground. They're upset about that. Some pictures appeared to show police stations aflame in the southern city of Shiraz. Speaking on Iranian state TV, prosecutor General Mohammad Jafar Montazeri blamed a few disruptors for the protest. He urged people to distance themselves from those who in his words wanted to show opposition to the Islamic system. He also accused protesters of having roots outside the country. Joe, the fact that this isn't on the fucking news, you know how this goes, man. You know how this goes. Under the new fuel measure, each motorist is allowed to buy 60 liters, 13 gallons, actually at 17 gallons of fucking petrol a month. Why can't people do math? Like, real shit, I just did the basic math, and, like, it was pretty fucking easy, right? At 15,000 euros, which is 10 cents or 13 to 10 cents a liter, right? Well, yeah, it fluctuates, right? But I put it in at 13 cents. Each additional liter then costs 30,000 reals, right? Previously, drivers were allowed up to 250 liters at 10,000 reals per liter. Basically, this is a gas subsidy. It's kind of the deal, right? Because the government owns the gas, therefore the people owns the gas. Kind of the deal, you know what I mean? Then they sell whatever they have extra, right? Kind of the situation. But people have been smuggling in and out of the country as well, which is a bit of a problem due to how cheap it is. Like, wouldn't you smuggle fuel if you could sit there and make, because we're talking about what are they getting it for, like 29 cents a gallon or 43 cents a gallon? Like, you could easily crush it. Like, in Europe, they're paying something like $10 or $15 a gallon for gas. So, like, yeah, imagine the amount of money you could make just selling it on the black market. It would be ridiculous. The new measure is expected to bring 30 trillion reals per annum, he said on state television, and help 18 million families. So basically, they're putting a rise on gas, which will affect poor people the worst, in order to help poor people. They're fucking brilliant. But I get it. You're under sanctions, so like you really can't do a whole lot. Yeah, and the 30 trillion reals per annual, I think it's like $18 billion they wanted to raise a year. Iran has one of the world's cheapest fuel due to heavy subsidies and the fall in the value of its currency. It is also one of the world's largest oil producers, with exports worth billions of dollars each year, but it has limited refining capacities, and sanctions have made it difficult to obtain spare parts for oil plants. Sanctions were reimposed last year after U.S. President Donald Trump abandoned the landmark nuclear deal between Iran and 6 world powers. Under the accord, Iran agreed to limit its controversial nuclear activities and allow international inspectors to return for sanctions relief. Since the U.S. left the deal, Iran has been gradually stepping up its nuclear activity in breach of the accord, although it has consistently denied wanting to develop nuclear weapons. These sanctions have led a sharp downturn in Iran's economy, pushing the value of its currency to record lows, quadrupling its annual inflation rate, and driving away foreign investors and triggering protests. So, now, this was from the 17th of this month, all right? And this article, which I just, found from, I think today, it's from like 4 or 5 hours ago, right? It says, Iran looses internet restrictions after protest shutdown. This is from 17 hours ago, so this is from last night. Internet access gradually being restored as cyberspace officials says the countries will have full access in 2 days, right? Iran began restoring internet access in the capital number of provinces after a 5-day nationwide shutdown meant to help stifle deadly protest over fuel price hikes. The country's elite Revolutionary Guard security force said calm had now been returned across Iran on Thursday, state TV reported. The internet is being gradually restored in the country, with semi-official news agency Fars reported, quoting unidentified informed sources. The National Security Council that ordered a shutdown approved reactivating the internet in some areas, it said. This is why, I don't trust Bitcoin. Legit. Because this is all you need. You know what I mean? If some backwater bullshit country like Iran can fucking do this shit, you could easily fucking do it. You know what I mean? According to news reports, fixed line internet was restored in Hormozgan, Kermashka, Arak, Mashhad, Qam, Tabriz, Hamadan, Bushehr provinces, as well as parts of Tehran. We again have internet as of an hour ago. A retired engineer who declined to be named said by telephone from the capital. Iran was rocked by nationwide protests sparked by growing anger and frustration after authorities rolled out a petrol rationing scheme and slashed subsidies in a move that sent prices soaring by 50%. That's only because their currency dropped. It's not 50%. It's all right, whatever. A top cyber security official in Iran told journalists on Thursday he believes the country's internet will be fully turned on within the next 2 days, right? Because it was at 8.5 cents a gallon, and now it's at 13. So, it's more like 40%, 38, 40, somewhere right around there. Abu Salman Farazabad, Secretary of Supreme Cyberspace Council. Supreme Cyberspace Council. That sounds like a 90s fucking cartoon show villain name. It's a Supreme Cyberspace Council. Dude. Like Bill and Ted would have went and go and fucking seen him. Said the organization discussed the matter at a meeting. We hope conditions will improve soon so that this unwanted measure is stopped and everyone can have access to the internet again. Some businesses have lost profits as a result of cutting off the internet, and the decision will be made on compensating for their losses after the current situation is over. He also called for the creation of a more powerful and effective national internet for times of crisis. Death toll dispute. Amnesty International said on Tuesday more than 100 demonstrators have been killed by security forces. I don't know if y'all heard all them fucking gunshots going off. They hitting somebody. You know what I mean? These lots of protests. A figure rejected as fabricated by Iran's government. Right? Iranian officials said the steep fuel price increase was imperative because of crippling American sanctions and devastating its oil-based economy, and the money raised would be given to the nation's poorest people. The subsidy said the price raises raise about $2.5 billion a year for an extra subsidies of 18 million families struggling on low income. The internet blockage made it difficult for protesters to post videos to social media, generate support, and also to obtain reliable reports of the extent of the unrest. Internet Blockage Observatory NetBlock said the restoration of connectivity in Iran covered only about 10% of the country. News agencies and residents said only fixed-line internet, not mobile internet, was partially available. Death and tragedy. U.S. President Trump on Thursday accused the government of shutting down internet to cover up death and tragedy during a wave of protests. Iran has become so unstable, regime has shut down their entire internet system so the great Iranian people cannot talk to the tremendous violence taking place within the country. They want zero transparency. They think the world will not find out about this death and tragedy that the Iranian regime is causing. The IMF said it regretted the violence and loss of life during the protests and had not discussed the fuel price hike with Iran. Yeah, while compensating the poor with targeted cash, which we understand the approach Iran is taking. All right. Yeah, Amnesty International said it documented at least 106 protesters killed by security forces will make it the worst street unrest in Iran, at least in a decade, and probably since the 1979 Islamic Revolution. Iran's UN mission on Wednesday blasted Amnesty and said only the government could provide an accurate death toll. Y'all motherfuckers is legit. Yo, they is not playing games. Iranian authorities said several people, including members of security forces, were killed in street violence, which Tehran blamed on foreign foes, naming the United States, Israel, and Saudi Arabia. Of course you did. Yeah, anyway, right, so that's kind of where this is at. All right, so they're starting to get internet back. We don't know if we will ever actually see the extent of what the hell happened. We probably will. In the age of internet, it's hard to keep things covered up, but I will most definitely keep y'all posted on this story about what's going on and like how everything works out. In the meantime, man, you know the situation. It's Tom Pease with Pinot News. Y'all make sure y'all stay tuned. Look, I'm gonna bring you stories everybody else won't. It is what it is. Holla at your boy. Peace.